We're back again. I know this has been a long time. Life got in the way, doing albums and music festivals and records and hey kitty. So I've been raiding. I haven't been as active as we wanted to, but life gets in the way, and you just keep hammering through. Uh, so I'll tell you about my 150. We're back at it. I finally finished the ones that were on the list. I even read another one that was on the list but hasn't wasn't selected for me. I just started reading it because I had to. Let's get started. We started with Bridge of Birds by Barry Hughart. This was great. It was, it's the novel of an ancient China that never was. Basically, it's a fantasy novel, but it's China, so it's very much like Tale of Genji, Soseki kind of vibe, but you know, written by a guy in the West, but kind of he seemed to just be like someone who loves like Chinese adventure movies, and so this was very much that, just like a great adventure, kind of funny, kind of silly, but I felt kind of also pretty respectful and just like reveling in like a notion of fantasy in a different setting, because we are definitely so used to things taking from like Norse and Greek and all that kind of myth, like everything's Tolkien. So to have fantasy come from a different bent was very cool. So I would recommend this. This was great. I've got the second one somewhere. Let me find it. So there it is, The Story of Stone. This was the sequel, the second one. My understanding was that he intended it to be a quadrology of some kind. So our man Tenox is back at it, but yeah, I don't. So obviously the series never got finished, but I don't think that really matters. Just as long as there's another one to get to. My other one was. So I also had Cantor's Krazy Kat. This was so far the only dud. This one didn't deliver. So if you're familiar with the early 20th century comic series, kind of comic strip series, Krazy Kat and Ignatz, there's some very beautiful Fantagraphics reissues of the Krazy Kat series. So I was really interested in kind of like a novel taking that comic strip and kind of trying to do something literary about it. But this fell very short for me. It was so much of like telling what they had just previously did instead of just having us like in those scenes. Yeah, I don't know. Actually pretty similar to the Tintin novel, which I thought was also going to be great. I just wanted like another, like a literary take of Tintin, even though these are both literary comics and graphics. The novel Teuton. Here, I'll put the cover up somewhere. It's in these shelves somewhere. Also kind of a dud. So I don't know what it is. Maybe we need to stop taking these literary comics and trying to do a literary take on them, because so far the only dud. And then in the middle of that, I think this is on my 150 list already, but A Night of Serious Drinking by Daumal. I just got this edition, and so I just felt compelled to crack it. So read this in the hammock. It's a pretty quick read. This was great as well. Very much reminded me of Roussel's Solus Locus Solus. I always get those confused. Reminded me of Roussel quite a bit. Like, I would be very surprised if this was not influenced by that book. Also a little Gulliver's Travels-y. Basically, our narrator just starts the night at a bar and gets drunk and kind of falls through the floor of the bar and of the pub, and ends up in a sort of like strange world of. Jeez Louise, my cat is fighting the mic stand here, the boom stand. Hey, you're crazy. You're nuts. So our narrator there falls to the floor, ends up in a asylum sort of place where there's philosophers and artists that like argue certain things. Obviously, some type of metaphysical metaphor for where he's living. So yeah, kind of Gulliver's Travels-y, but kind of a garden of weird delights, also like Roussel. So I like that one a lot. I think I might have actually liked it more than Mount Analog, which also had a, you know, has a reputation as well. So those were great. I've got some other ones around, but I think those two are kind of considered the tops of Daumal's career, au revoir. And it was great. It's great. And lastly on that list, I read through Genet's Our Lady of the Flowers. Genet was a big gap in my reading, and especially for kind of trying to be up on my knowledge of Gaelic. This was strong. I don't know if I could say I liked it. It was, I wouldn't say a slog, but it was difficult reading, I would say. Like, it's the kind of the frame of the book is Genet himself is in prison, and he's sort of imagining and fantasizing about these kind of hustler characters that he's known in France, and so he jerks off to them, the thought of them and their stories. So but also like kind of very amazing in that this book kind of proves to me like counterculture isn't new. It's not like it's like a 20th century thing. It has existed for a long time. So even like before they had words for like non-binary and trans, like there was characters in this that had they the word would be that. And like it kind of just like the proof that despite not having that word, these people still existed. Like we existed on the spectrum and like have always existed through history. And so even in counterculture France, then like lives very hard. Like the way Genet would deify these characters, even though kind of society would treat them as like the dregs of the society. Genet like literally deifies them. He turns them into saints, and that dichotomy of how he does that with these figures is incredibly interesting. I'm absolutely happy I read it. I probably will get to Genet more, but yeah, absolutely something more of a more difficult take on this, because it wasn't linear. It was very much in the headspace of a man in prison, kind of jumping between stories and fantasies and philosophy about love and sex and living hard and thievery and all that. So very cool. Would recommend on the side, like was good, but loved the Daumal, loved the Hughart. Genet was very strong. So I've got some more Genet right here that needs to, now that this one, the big boy's out of the way, I will get to those as well. I forget where that takes me. It takes me to, I don't know, 9 or something, 11. So I'm only gonna do 2 this time. Last time was 3, and then that meant that this video took much longer to actually get out. And then I ended up reading 4, and then a bunch of other books in the middle. So this one takes longer. So maybe I'll just select 2 this go round, and that will make sure we keep the videos a little more regular.
Terrors of Ice and Darkness, Christophe Randmer. Holy Terrors, Jean Cocteau.
And you're right here. You're right here. So here we are next on deck. We've got Cocteau's Holy Terrors and The Terrors of Ice and Darkness by Christophe Randmer. I don't know anything about this. Literally just when I worked at the bookstore, I snagged it just because it looked cool, but I don't know anything if he's got any cachet. I don't know what it's similar to. It just kind of vibed like basically like a kind of Shackleton style, northern expedition lost in the north, lost in the ice. Austrian writer, yes, and just kind of keeping up that German lit stuff. So we'll see how that goes. And then kind of very similar to the Genet there, kind of I guess we're following a theme. We've got Cocteau's Holy Terrors. More of people living gay and hard back when. So happy to do both these. So I'll touch base with you soon. Hopefully you're reading lots. Hopefully these videos are inspiring you a little bit to get that reading done. Go through those 2 read piles. I'm definitely behind, but I'm doing my best. So I will see you all